Browning wants to throw, looks, throws out there. It is intercepted by the Lions. Amik Robertson's got it inside the 20 and down at the 17-yard line. Pass was intended for Jamar Chase. Amik just jumped right in front of him and said, "I'll take that." Lions with a takeaway.
It is week 6 of the NFL season. Welcome to the Twentyman Huddle podcast. I am Tim Twentyman, and I am joined by the Detroit News' Nolan Bianchi. He does a great job covering the Lions with the news. Also, the Grit Iron podcast does a good job there, too. Thanks for being my guest. I
thanks for having me. It's a nice place you got up here.
Yeah.
I like this lion back here.
Yeah, Bear does a great job setting all this up, and Edmund done a great job. I just sit here and talk football, and he does all the work, but it turns out great. Thank you for joining me. And Nolan, let's start with this. First off, I can't believe it's week 6 already. We're kind of rolling through this thing here.
We are almost 33% of the way through the season. That makes me sad.
That makes me
This is
sad.
my favorite time of year.
It's crazy, but look, both of us were in Cincinnati, and we saw that performance, and we talked to coaches and players afterward. And, they went on the road. Look, they didn't have Joe Burrow, I get it, but they went on the road. They scored 37 points against a pretty good defense, won the game by 13 points. And afterward, just talking to the players, talking to the coaches, I felt like they were a little bit disappointed by that. Is it crazy that we are sitting here week 6 and we're talking about a 13-point win on the road in which you score 37 points and they're disappointed by this? Is the standard too high, Nolan?
I think for the fans, sometimes I think the standard might be a little too high.
Oh, you follow X just like I do. Huh?
Yeah. And at halftime of that game, they left some points out there, no doubt. But you're going to do that every single game. And I think there's almost become an expectation that if they don't score on literally every single possession, that the game was kind of incomplete in some way. And I don't necessarily know that that's fair. But I do think from the players and coaches' perspective, I do think that's okay. I think that's kind of what you want. They're not really worried about what they're putting up on the scoreboard. They're more worried about, hey, how many, of these plays look good? How many sacks and negative plays did they take? So I was doing a little bit of research. They are averaging 2.89 points per drive, so that's third in the NFL. But they also have the league's best starting field position. Their average starting field position is at the 36. So I do think there are a lot of times, and this kind of this trend started to break a little bit in the Cincinnati game. But it felt like there were times over the first couple weeks of the season when they were getting these turnovers, these takeaways, or starting with great field position and maybe not punching it in. And I think that that's some of the stuff that they kind of regret after a game is when, they don't convert on a turnover and turn it into 6 points or something like that. But in that Cincinnati game, 14 points off of turnovers, you had 3 picks. Pretty good, but I think that they still believe that they should have scored on that third one too.
I think they're at a point with the roster that they feel like it's all about them. Mm-hmm. That there's a standard now in all those rooms, in the offense room, defense room, special teams. They know that they've got a roster that's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. And I think I don't mind that standard is high. Sometimes I think it's too high on themselves.
Yeah.
I thought Amik was a great example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ask him to step up, cover one of the best wide receivers in the league, gets a pick, does a great job. The first thing after the game we talked about was him being too aggressive and giving up that long touchdown afterward. It's stuff like that. I like it. It's a high standard, but it just goes to show kind of where this football team is, right?
Yeah, and it's like Deshae Townsend said last week, the Lions, defensive backs coach. He was basically saying, when you're on offense, you make 3 mistakes, you punt 1 time. If you're on defense, you make 3 mistakes, you give up 3 touchdowns. And I think that was kind of just the situation that they were in because they were playing so well. And then all it takes is one little play to kind of, I don't want to say unravel everything because, again, they still won the game handily. But at no point in that game were they ever in danger of losing that game. But, I think they're at a point now where the wins and losses, they're important, and the wins matter certainly. But I think these games are all about, hey, how can we refine the stuff that could prevent this team from winning a Super Bowl? And I think that's why maybe the standard is so high, is because, they're not maybe appreciative enough that they're just getting out of there with a win. They're saying, yes, we did this, but this could prevent us from winning a Super Bowl. Therefore, it needs to fix.
This could bite us later in the playoffs, which obviously has been big the last 2 years. I think good point by you. Jared Goff, another 150-plus passer rating game. Ho-hum, we're getting used to those.
Yep.
But is he a legitimate MVP candidate through 5 weeks in your book?
I think so, 100%. And this is something that, we all have our like morning after columns that we write or whatever. And I feel like I mentioned Jared Goff in every single one of them because when I'm doing the game story and I'm doing, the night of, I'm like, yeah, Jared Goff was his normal self, really, really good. And then the next day I'm kind of looking at all the numbers and I'm like, oh, this was like one of the best quarterback performances in the NFL last weekend. Doesn't have a starting left tackle. The 4 sacks, he gets hit with those, but he only throws 4 incompletions despite having a guy who, and I think Gio is, a great developmental piece, but in his first game, the fact that he's still able to go 19 for 23 for 258 or whatever it was, I think just is a testament to how good this guy is pre-snap. And I think that's something he doesn't get a lot of credit for. There was I think a lot of times people tend to favor the guys who create after the play. But to me, there's no difference between a guy who can make, lemonade out of lemons after the play and a guy who just does it before the play. But because it happens before the play, he doesn't really seem to get a lot of credit for it because you can't see it. He's got a new OC, a new center, and he still hasn't missed a beat outside of week 1.
That's big. But getting somebody out of a play that's going to be a disaster, a turnover, a sack, changing the protections. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think it was against Cleveland, the second Amon-Ra touchdown. Wasn't even called in from John up in the booth. It was something Jared completely changed the coverage, saw a look earlier, turned into an easy touchdown. Everybody sees that, and John, what a great play call by Morton to scheme that up and get Amon-Ra open. No.
Yeah.
That was Goff, and that's the point that you're talking about and you're making is it's that pre-snap stuff that you don't see that's so important for this team and this offense.
100%. I made this analogy yesterday, but let's say you own a restaurant, right? Your top cook. You got 2 top cooks. One of them always on time, always make sure he has prep items backed up and stuff like that. Everything's hitting the fan. He's making it look easy. He's swapping things in and out because he's prepared. He's got all of it. And then let's say you got another one. He doesn't like to necessarily show up on time, doesn't know where his stuff is. He still gets the job done, maybe in a timely manner, but if he's running all over the kitchen, having to grab this, grab that, you could say, oh, that's so impressive that guy's doing it. I'd rather just have the guy who's prepared. He knows where his jalapenos are. He knows where, all those things are. That's kind of how I view Jared Goff as a guy who he gets to work, the day starts, and all of the work that he's done is what allows him to have success. People say, that the system, he benefits from the system. But you and I have heard how many times Jared Goff is the system. They built this offense in his vision. So I just feel like a lot of the things that people knock him for are just not really things to knock somebody for.
Well, I think there's an MVP candidate on the other side of the football, too. And Aidan Hutchinson has picked off right where he left off last year when he was leading the league in pressures, leading the league in sacks, obviously had the broken leg week 6. And he's showing Lions fans what they really missed last year. I wrote that yesterday in my notebook. And going for his 5th straight game with a sack, that'll be a franchise record. Nolan, he's playing at an elite level. And what he means for that defense in terms of how offenses have to play him and what he means for the guys directly around him is invaluable for this football team.
Absolutely, and he's doing it all without their second best pass rusher, and Aleem McNeil, who could potentially return this week, and I guess we'll hear from Dan Campbell tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, just the way that they have to account for him, it's something that you forget about, down the backstretch last year, where you're saying, oh, this guy can step up, and maybe they can recreate his production in the aggregate. You know what you can't recreate in the aggregate? Double and triple teams that are being sent to one guy and unlocking everything for everybody else. So absolutely, it's not, it's like an onion. Like of course it's the production on its face, but as you continue to peel it back, you just realize the ripple effects that his presence has on this defense.
All right, let's look ahead to this week. Go on the road. Obviously a tough opponent in Kansas City, a team that's done it at a really high level for a long time. The 7 consecutive AFC Championship games, but no one a little weird seeing that 2-3 behind them. Penalties, some self-inflicted wounds, a little bit of issues. Right now, is this a dangerous game for Detroit just because you look at Kansas City at home, coming off a loss on Monday Night Football? they're reeling a little bit. They've got to get right, and they've got to get a win. Is this a dangerous kind of timing for Detroit?
Sure, but I think, the Lions are kind of already in the position already where they are getting everybody's best shot.
Yeah.
Like, they are a team like the Chiefs and the Ravens now. Wherever you go in to play them, the entire week of preparation is basically boils down to we have to be on our stuff this weekend. And I don't expect that to change for Kansas City this weekend. Obviously, there is a little bit of urgency overall. You fall to 2-4, and the playoff picture can get a little wonky. But I think generally speaking, like, this is a team that is going to play every game the exact same way. And we've seen it over the last couple of weeks. A couple of opponents who maybe going into it, you're saying, well, this should be an easy win for the Lions. And they go out there and they make it an easy win, which is not commonplace in the NFL. A lot of times these games are close. It doesn't matter who's playing who. But the Lions, for as long as I can remember, have just every week delivered their best shot. So, yes, it's something to think about. But with this team, I don't even know if I'm even considering it.
You look at the way Patrick Mahomes is playing, and that offense is kind of getting back to what we've seen in the past, with some of the explosive plays and him playing at a really high level. I think one of the kind of anomalies, at least early this season, is Patrick Mahomes, the runner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's leading them in rushing yards. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. When I look at this matchup and I look at what Kelvin Sheppard had planned for Lamar Jackson, obviously a little bit different of a runner, different of a player, but same concept, getting out of the pocket, extending plays with your arms, leg, run pass option, right? Very dangerous player. Could we see something similar to what Shep did in Baltimore, where they really did a nice job disguising kind of their spies and really focused on keeping Lamar contained? Can you have the same kind of plan with Patrick Mahomes, despite the fact there's 4-2, 4-2, 4-3, whatever on the outside too, or does that limit you some with what you can do?
Well, definitely. I mean, you're going to have to figure out a way to get him down, maybe even a little quicker than you got Lamar Jackson down. But I actually went back and I was reading the press conference from after that Ravens game, and Sheppard said that he used inspiration from Buffalo against Patrick Mahomes to kind of design that game plan. So I think
we have it.
I think he's on top of it, and that's something that I completely expect to have a very similar game plan of just like discipline, do your job, because I think that's one thing that they did so well in that game was everybody stuck to their responsibilities, and that's what you have to do when you play a quarterback like this, because what they're doing when they're rolling out is they're waiting for you to make the mistake. When are you going to make the mistake that springs us a 15-yard gain? And the Lions didn't really do that against Baltimore, and so absolutely different type of runner for sure, but it's the same stuff with the leak in the pocket and then the pump fake and then, now I'm going to run for 20 yards. So a lot of the same things that you got to worry about, I think.
Obviously dealing with some injuries in the secondary. Terry Nunner left that game. He's going to be out for an undisclosed amount of time, but it sounds like the news is better than they first thought. We still got a few more weeks for DJ Reed. Kirby Joseph hasn't practiced to begin the week. We'll see what his status is. They're hurting in the secondary. Now you're going to have Amik Robertson step up. We're going to have him on a little bit later too, and that's going to be a great conversation. But how do the Lions kind of alleviate some of this pressure that's on the secondary? Is it as easy as saying, hey, Hutch, the front seven, this one's on you. We're reeling a little bit in the back end. We still are confident in some guys that can step in and play, but we're down a couple starters. You guys got to go, be you and help us win this game.
100%. And I think that was one of the big things with that Baltimore game. I thought the linebackers were the star of the show in that game, and I think they're going to be just as big this weekend, which is fine. Jack Campbell's playing as well as any linebacker in the NFL. We know what Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone, those guys can do. They're also getting a lot of contributions from the depth, and that goes for linebacker and D-line. So, I think Lee McNeil coming back is going to be absolutely massive if they can get him going and you can feel his presence. I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing that counteracts maybe some of the deficiencies they have on the back end is the possibility of a Lee McNeil returning and that front seven getting after it.
How great do those linebackers complement each other?
Wonderfully, yeah.
I think you look at that in varying skill sets. It seems like Shep can put any kind of scheme down in terms of how he wants to use his linebackers, whether it's blitzing, zone, maybe heavy coverage. Anzo's one of the best in the business. Jack has really improved that part of his game. It seems like they could do it all. It gives Shep a lot of options with their linebackers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that we, when we talk about depth, I think a lot of times it's strictly in the context of if player A gets hurt, can player B help uphold the standard. But I think what you're seeing with this team, and especially in the linebackers, starting with that Baltimore game, is not only does it give you guys that you can rely on if your starters can't play, but it also gets the wheels turning of like, oh, wait, this guy is like a starting caliber player, so how can we use that to put him in the right spot? You know, Trevor Nowaski, I think he had like 13 snaps in that 7 to 13 snaps in that Baltimore game. And he was huge, and they used him perfectly on those snaps. And he comes up with a sack. He comes up with a couple other big plays. Zach Cunningham comes in to make a stop on the goal line against Derrick Henry that kind of flips the game temporarily. So I think that is the biggest benefit of collecting the depth that they have, is not only having guys who can jump in the place of an injured starter, but also a guy who can contribute a ton as a reserve.
All right, you've looked at the matchups. You've broken down the offense, defense all week. What's the biggest matchup for Nolan Bianchi?
I think it's the linebackers against Patrick Mahomes and remaining disciplined. Same goes to, front seven in general. I think it's just going to be maintaining that discipline that you showed against Lamar Jackson and not allowing him to escape the pocket. And also Kelvin Sheppard versus, Andy Reid. Like, I think that's going to be huge too, now that they've put that on film against Baltimore, Kansas City is going to respond, and they're going to have some things for the looks that Kelvin Sheppard's going to show them. Can he adjust in real time and find a way to get the edge back? I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
I thought it was interesting listening to Shep this week when he was talking about Andy Reid and just the challenge that they provide is how Andy doesn't give you similar looks.
Yeah.
He doesn't maybe tip his hand a little bit, and how hard it was to come up with a scheme. They don't do the same thing on down and distance. That some tendencies that you see with other offensive coordinators, Shep says, you study them long enough, you can start to get the tendencies. There's no tendencies in Reid. And when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes who can break any tendency with just the off-schedule type of plays, it's tough. I'm going to be really interested to see what Shep comes up with, because this will really test kind of his schemes, his thinking hat, and his in-game adjustments as well.
Yeah. Well, and he also kind of said that that's what he wants to do himself. Like, remember after that Baltimore game, we were like, hey, did you change your mind about the QB spy? And he was like, that's the thing though. Like, we're not having a QB spy that's just, hey, easy to identify. That's going to be the guy who's just shuffling back and forth. Like, they're changing it on every play. They're kind of trying to do the same things that Kansas City is doing on offense, but in a defensive way. And I can't wait.
It should be a really fun matchup. They're going for 5 straight. They're playing really good football right now. That's going to be a fun atmosphere, trying to keep it rolling. Nolan, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. We'll be right back with Amik. Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. I am very happy to welcome in Amik Robertson, cornerback extraordinaire for the Detroit Lions. And Amik, I want to start with this. We were talking to Calvin Sheppard this week, and he said, Amik's my dog. Like, that is my guy. And he said that stems back from all the way back when you were in high school, and you're from the Louisiana area. Yep. Justin Jefferson's from the Louisiana area. You were down at an LSU camp, and he said this guy, he had a knee brace on. He was feeling a little something. He said he went into a line and said, I want that guy, Justin Jefferson. And Shep said, that's when I knew, like, Amik was a baller. Like, he was my guy. Where's that come from? Has that always been you?
Always, man. Always. I honestly, it's God-given, right? But I think it also comes from just having to earn everything, right? Always being counted out. It's just my agenda now. So I've learned how to, use it, not worry. I mean, use it in a positive way. I learned how to use it as one of my strengths, right? When someone tell me I can't do something, it adds extra fuel, to my fire,
And there's something you played such a terrific game last week. I mean, here you are. You're asked to play one of the best wide receivers in the game. You play a physical game. You get yourself an interception by playing that way. We go to you in the locker room. The first thing you talked about was a touchdown you gave up late because you were being a little bit too aggressive. Yeah. That's the best receiver in the game. Yeah. The first thing you thought about, not about the performance, about allowing him to have 50 yards the whole game. It was the touchdown that you talked about. Is that just part of that competitive spirit with you? Is it wanting to be just so perfect?
Yeah, it definitely is, man. Because sometimes being this fall, in my life, had playing the position I played, playing DB. I don't ever say I'm a corner or nickel. I'm a DB, but just making it this fall, playing both of those positions, I had to be different. I had to do have crazy numbers. I had to do the extraordinary, right? And if I want to, if they give me an assignment, to do that, I believe I have 100% belief in myself that I can do that because I'm just highly competitive. Like, this ain't nothing that you can fake. Like, this is really who I am, right? And when I go out there, I know it's not going to be perfect, but I try to chase improve. Like, I try to be perfect, right? But it's like, what do you chase? When you out there, do you want to be mediocre or do you want to be one of the best in the league? That's what I harp on. And now that I have a full opportunity to do that, I want to take advantage of it, man, because I remember how, I know how the bottom feel, man. I don't want to go back. So that's why I try to, each and every day I step foot on that grass, man, I'm highly competitive and I got a point to prove.
You go back a ways with Shep. What's that relationship like between you two? Because listen to him talk about you. Yeah. I mean, his face just lit up. He couldn't say enough good things about what you mean to this football team with your ability to play the nickel, go outside. One of the most underrated performances of all last year. You guys won 15 games. It was that Week 18 game you had against Justin Jefferson. It just being a guy that can just do anything, step in when needed, play whatever, no complaints, aggressive. Just Shep seems to love it. What's that relationship like with you and your new DC?
Me and Shep, man, we have a great relationship. And it's the thing about it, like, because he have high expectations for me, man. Like, Shep know, it's like Shep already know that I'm my worst critic. So it's certain things that, he know I could take accountability. He know why I wanna be, in my career. He knows that I'm hard on myself. Of course, he know he got a pit bull. He know he got a dog in me, but he's gonna stay on me hard to continue, doing those little things, because it's always the little things, man, that you mess up in the game when and it makes you not be perfect. So I love the standard and the expectation that he set on me, because it only makes me better. There's times in there that I might at practice or whatever mess something up. He'll put it on the big screen like Amik, like I tell him, like, oh, that's on me. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, I already know. You know what I'm saying? Because he know I could take that accountability, because he know why I want to be and what kind of player I want to be in this league, man. The relationship been great, man. The relationship been great, and all I want to do is prove him right. Of course, prove it to myself, but I want to prove, like, I want to show him that, like, that everything you say about me is true, and that's what you want, man. When you got a coach in your corner, you want to go out there and prove him right, and I have all respect for Shep.
He seems like a guy to me that he'll get on you, and he's not afraid to. But 5 minutes later, he'll love you up too. And as a player, you've got to respect that, because he was a player. He was in your shoes too, and he knows how to maybe walk that fine line. Mm-hmm. Players need some toughness sometimes, some hard love, right? But they also want a guy in their corner. That to me seems like Shep's genius, is that he can maybe toe that line a little bit.
And the thing about it, like, that's what I want. I don't want a coach that, okay, he have talent, so I'm gonna kind of ease up on. Nah, I like hard coaching, because that's how I was brought up. I was always brought up earning everything. So it's like, I don't want to go out there and mess up and the coach don't tell me that he kind of, like, I like that. And Shep is far from that. If you make a mistake that he know that you better than, he's going to tell you about it, and you're going to feel bad, but you're also going to learn. It's like a kid when you're young, when you get when you do something bad and you get a whooping, but it's mostly
you ain't doing that again.
What I'm saying? You ain't gonna do it again. So that's what you want, man. That's what you want. You want a leader like that. You want a guy, but at the end of the day, he know he's telling you that from a good, from
place of love.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's what you want, man. That's what you want.
You have the rare ability to play inside and outside in this league. You're going to do both this year, probably all year long. Just what's the biggest difference, Amik, from playing inside to outside, and what kind of skill sets do you have to have as a player to be able to do both, and do both at a high level like you can do?
Mindset, man.
That's all it is.
It's a mindset, man. You gotta. Some guys don't. Me personally, I just want to be on the field, man. I just want to be on the field, and whenever I'm out there, man, whatever play call I try to be myself within the scheme. That's what they allow me to do. They allow me to be myself within the scheme, and not be greedy. Just play with my instincts, and the game most of the time, like they tell me, the game gonna come to me. Don't be greedy. just my play style, the game is going to come to me.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel comfortable playing both, man. It really don't even matter to me. I just want to be on the field, and I will do whatever I can to make plays and to help the team. But as far as like either or, I think I like corner better though, because a lot of guys underestimate, you know, my size. Like, okay, we're gonna go at him, but I like it. You know, I embrace that because it gives me more opportunity to show what I can do, my ball skills, and being able to create turnovers.
You guys play a lot of man here. You seem perfect for that kind of scheme. You know, a lot of corners love to play zone because you can look in the backfield and there's more opportunities to make big plays and stuff. But you seem to revel in the man-to-man. Well, why is that? Is it?
Like I said before, man, mindset, man. It just it's me versus you, and like I'm just highly competitive, and playing DB is hard, man. You know, it's like, you know, it's hard. You guarding a guy backwards, you know, when you out there. But I just embrace it. Like, I want to play man. You know, I enjoy playing man. Yeah, zone is cool, so I can watch the quarterback and jump stuff, whatever. But playing man, it's like my job is to just beat the guy in front of me. Oh, okay, bet.
That competitiveness goes throughout everything. One of the loudest maybe things that happen daily when we're in the locker room, you are a pretty avid pool player. That pool table, you are always on it. Vaki's pretty good. Montgomery's got a little bit of game, but who's the best pool player in that locker room?
I mean, it's in the most humblest way, man.
That wouldn't be your style for sure.
It's me. But sometimes the guy, you take a loss, but it's not always a loss, man. It's a lesson, you know.
I like it.
You know, when I sit back, I see them play. I'm watching, you know. I'm watching film. So when I play, you know, just now I'm gonna be real. You know, I don't like to keep it. You know, I'm gonna put it out there. I just lost, you know. But
Montgomery got you a little bit.
It's always best out of three. See, don't get too high, because if you get too high, the guy come knock you down, man. You know what I'm saying? So we got 2 more games to play, you know, and I'm gonna win the next 2.
How are those moments important? That little time in between practice, meetings, you guys get to play ping pong, pool, build those relationships. Is that an important part of the day?
Very, man, very important. Because you know, when you out there, you going against each other. It's competitive. You want to be out there and do your job, right? But when you come back in the locker room, man, it's all laughter, and you know, we talk about practice, and guys, because this is the ultimate team, man. Like, guys ain't faking it. Like, guys really want what's best for one another, you know. And when we playing pool, you know, it's all, of course, it's competitive, but it's all fun and games, man.
You let people know when you win too. I could be across the locker room talking to somebody. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I be seeing the eyes, man. You know, I mean, you know, they gon' if they beat me, they gonna make it loud. Yeah, get off the, you know what I'm saying. So when I win, I talk my stuff too, man. You know?
All right, let's talk KC real quick before I let you go and get those 2 more against David in. Obviously, you look at them, it all starts with 15, right? Well, Andy Reid's been doing it a long time at a really high level. He kind of sets the tone, but 15 is a Hall of Fame guy. Let's be real. You know, if he were to quit today, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. They got speed all over the place. I mean, it goes 4-2, 4-2, 4-3, whatever. You know, just when you watch him on film, when you're preparing for him, what is maybe the most dangerous part of that offense? What do you guys have to be really good about Sunday night to get out of there with a win?
First and foremost, man, you know, Mahomes, man, 15-15 is a heck of a player, man. Once, you know, he's a magician. He's the engine to their car, right? We just got to do whatever we can to slow him down. You know, I see they got speed, but you know, those guys are deep. You know, some of them deep threat guys. I think for us, man, we just gotta believe in the plan, you know. Believe in the plan. They do a lot of motions, you know. So being able to communicate, you know. But we got some great communicators in Jack and Zoe and Barnes. You know, they're gonna put the defense in a right play. You know, with Shep calling those plays as well. So I think we're gonna be cool, man. You know, they're very explosive, but you know, we got the guys that, you know, can slow down those explosive plays. We just gotta trust one another, which we already do.
You guys faced a pretty explosive guy week 3 on the road in Baltimore. Similar situation. That defense stepped up, handled him. So hopefully you guys can do the same with number 15, win 5 straight. You guys are rolling right now. Amik, that defense is playing really well, and you're a big part of it. I appreciate taking the time. Good luck Sunday night.
Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Welcome back to the 20-Minute in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. I am very happy to welcome in Jesse Newell. He does a great job covering everything Kansas City. Used to be with the Kansas City Star, has just started with The Athletic. Congratulations on the new job, Jesse.
Appreciate it, Tim. Thanks for having me.
All right, we got to start with this. This is a little bit strange going into a matchup against Kansas City and seeing that record behind Kansas City at 2-3. What's been missing from this Chiefs team through these first 5 weeks?
It's a really weird thing to talk about with the Chiefs because it's coming off a season last year where they were not apologizing for any close win they could get. You know, if they kick the ball off the upright, it goes through and they win. They're like, hey, won the game. You know, if they block a field goal on the last play, it's like, hey, they made the winning play to win the game. And so last year, 12-0 in one-score games for the Chiefs. This year, 2025, 0-3 in one-score games. And so the script has completely flipped. The Chiefs can't come out, though, and be like, oh, well, we're unlucky or things aren't going our way because, you know, last year was the exact opposite, and nobody was turning back in those wins when they started 15-1 and ended up making their way all the way to the Super Bowl. So we heard from Patrick Mahomes this week so much just talking about winning plays. And you go back to the Jaguars game, and you know, they just lost on Monday Night Football 31-28. And quarterback for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, deserves a lot of credit for making some critical throws, falling down a couple times and getting up and scrambling into the end zone for the 1-yard run. But those are the types of plays that we're used to the Chiefs making. And so we heard so many times from Patrick Mahomes, he said, winning plays. And really the Chiefs have come pretty close in the margins to making a couple of those plays that would make them either 3-2 or 4-1. You saw in the Eagles game earlier this year, they had a touchdown potentially to Travis Kelce. He bobbles the ball, it goes off his hands, and the Eagles intercept that pass. That becomes the biggest play of the game. So it's crazy to talk about a season after and basically having the same roster come back saying, hey, this Chiefs team hasn't made the clutch plays late, but they haven't made the clutch plays late. And that really has been something that we have not been used to seeing, especially recently for a team under Andy Reid.
You know, another thing for an Andy-led team, and I know it was a difference late in that game Monday night, too, was penalties. You know, they had 13 of them, I think, against Jacksonville. I went back and looked. I think they're at 42 for the season, which I think is top 3 or top 5 in the league. Very uncharacteristic of a pretty veteran team there in Kansas City. How have the penalty issues kind of creeped up and been an issue along with those, like you mentioned, game-changing plays? Well, game-changing penalties, as we saw at the end of that Jacksonville game where they thought they had it won there on a broken up play in the end zone, and it becomes first down and the touchdown. How much are penalties kind of creeping in uncharacteristically for this team?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that word uncharacteristic because that's the sort of thing that Andy Reid, if we know anything, the Chiefs or anything, it's like they're long training camps, they get the details down, they do things correctly, and then they're disciplined. And 13 penalties for 109 yards is the opposite of what you would consider disciplined. And so, you know, penalties can be fluky. And I don't think I need to tell you this, Tim, like they have a tendency to sometimes go away when you're at home and pop up when you're on the road. So sometimes those things happen as well. And so maybe the Lions will have a little bit of a different or experience against the Chiefs than, you know, what the Jaguars had in their particular game. But yeah, this is, you hear Andy Reid talk about, he's like, I've got to get it fixed. This has got to get fixed. And this is like top of mind for him when you're talking to him in his press conference this week, because uncharacteristic is the word. This is not what we're used to seeing from the Chiefs. And so many of those things went against them. The other thing, you referenced this as well, but 4 special teams penalties. And Dave Toub has been the top of the NFL in terms of special teams coaches for a long time now, you know, going back to his Bears days and Devin Hester. And we are so used to the Chiefs just getting these little edges in special teams every single game in past years, whether it's Harrison Butker kicking clutch field goals or them getting great returns in games that they really need them. And so it's really jarring when you watch a game and you see the special teams is the difference in between the Chiefs losing instead of winning. And that's what we saw last game. Again, 4 penalties. They kicked the ball out of bounds to give the Jaguars the ball on the 40-yard line for their game-winning drive. So a lot of things went wrong there. I'd expect a couple of those things to get fixed pretty quickly, and the penalties and special teams would be at the top of the list.
Just one of the key matchups this weekend. Obviously, Detroit's defense is playing pretty well, especially their front 7. They've got some injuries in the secondary they're going to have to deal with. And you talk to those guys in the front 7, they say, look, we've got to step up this week. We've got to create a little bit more pressure, give those guys who are going to be plugging and playing in the back end a little bit more time to do what they need to do. Detroit's second in the league in sacks with 16 after 5 weeks, but This Kansas City offensive line, I watched them on Monday, and I've watched them throughout the year, especially on the tackle spots. They're playing pretty good football. How key is that matchup this week coming in against Aidan Hutchinson and those guys who are really getting after the quarterback? But Kansas City, at least to me, seems like they're playing pretty good up front, especially on the edges. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because you think back, everybody watched the Super Bowl obviously and saw exactly where the Chiefs went wrong is they could not protect Patrick Mahomes and Eagles players were just streaming through the line through the whole game and he couldn't get comfortable. It's been crazy to watch Patrick Mahomes the last 2 or 3 weeks because he has gotten comfortable. He's sat back in the pocket. He's trusted his protection. A lot of that goes to Josh Simmons, you're talking about on the left tackle spot. I know there's a next gen stat out there that just came out this week that said, I think he's the 5th lowest pressure rate of any left tackle in football so far this season. I mean, he's been a godsend for them on the left side. And, you know, Jawan Taylor on the right side has been inconsistent with penalties and the lining up off sides and all, you know, some holding penalties, things like that, and not great in the run game. But as far as pass protection goes, he's been pretty solid. And that's sort of what his MO has been throughout his NFL career. But it's all led to, like, if those two spots are secure, you've got Trey Smith and you've got Creed Humphrey, and now you've got Kingsley Suamataia in his second year who's really emerging and coming on. And you mentioned this, no sacks last week for the Jaguars, a pretty good Jaguars defensive front coming in against the Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes is sitting back there. He's playing as well as he's played in a long time. And so this is really an interesting dynamic, an interesting contradiction when you look at the Chiefs, because last week against the Jaguars, 7.6 yards per play. You do that against almost any team, you win the football game. And again, the Chiefs have a pick six from their 1 yard line that goes the other direction. You have all these penalties. They have weird things go against them. You end up losing, but their offense really is ascending at the right time. I would say still, you know, if they're going to get after a guy, you know, Josh Simmons is still a rookie and he's still in his first year. And there still have been moments where he struggled with hand placement and knowing exactly where to hit guys, especially really talented guys like a Hutchinson would be in there. So that'll be a great matchup to watch in this game. That's been a part of the reason the Chiefs offense has been emerging as of late. But there is always sort of that hold your breath moment because you put a rookie against a really talented player like Hutchinson and crazy things can happen.
Yeah, I mentioned the injuries the Lions are dealing with earlier. You're down to their third cornerback out there, and you know might have to plug and play some other guys at some certain spots. We'll see if Taylor Decker's back at left tackle after he missed last week. How are the Chiefs injury-wise? Anything of concern heading into this week, or are they pretty good?
I mean, it is crazy talking about this 2-3 team, Tim, because I just wrote at The Athletic this morning about like they're 2-3, but potentially 4 signs they can turn it around. Their injury report yesterday, they had no one limited in practice. No one. Like on
Zero.
their active roster, no one. They're missing nobody. And so like you look at all these signs like, you know, Vegas loves them right now. They're like if you made a Vegas sportsbook power ranking, the Chiefs would be 3rd. They'd be the top team in the AFC. They're 2-3. So they're still saying, oh, this is a really good team. Patrick Mahomes right now in the sports betting odds, he's 2nd in the MVP voting right now. Only behind Josh Allen. They're
For a 2-3 team.
Like if you're going to tell me they were 2-3 going into the season, you'd be like, oh, Mahomes not trusting his you know, O-line and maybe he's not playing well. He's 2nd in MVP voting and they're struggling. I just mentioned the offensive line's playing as well as they could hope. But yeah, you add that to it, like Christian Fulton's a main guy, a cornerback that he's been out with ankle injuries and knee injuries, but he could be back for this game. He was a full participant yesterday. Omar Norman-Lott, he's their 2nd-round defensive tackle. They desperately need defensive tackles to be in there next to Chris Jones, and he was a full participant yesterday in practice, so you expect him back out there against the Lions. The Chiefs not only are sort of emerging offensively, they're getting healthy, and there really aren't many excuses for them to not win football games, even against tough opponents coming up, and to try to get their season turned around. So it is crazy looking. You know, they just played the Ravens a couple weeks ago. You know how injuries can totally derail a season if that happens, but this Chiefs team right now, for them, knock on wood, I mean, they are as healthy as they could be heading into this stretch where they desperately need some wins.
I'm curious from you, what's the key matchup? What does Kansas City have to do to defend home turf Sunday night, national broadcast? Obviously, they've got to get right, a big game for them going 2-4. That puts you behind the 8 ball. What's the matchup that they're looking at that they say, hey, we've got to win this matchup to be able to knock Detroit off and get this thing back rolling?
So if I'm being honest with you, Tim, like the first year I covered the Chiefs was back in their Super Bowl victory against the Eagles. And that team was offense-led. And I think this team is getting to that point. Like they are emerging offensively at the right time. They're about to get Rashee Rice back next week. And already the offense is taking steps to say, hey, this is the sort of thing we saw from the Chiefs 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. the defense to me has taken a little bit of a step back. And so if I'm looking at matchups and I'm looking at strengths versus weaknesses, I think the biggest thing for the Lions in this game is they are so good under center, they are so good with play action, and the Chiefs are worse than the NFL in both of those measures. So the Chiefs face a real struggle right now. I just talked about the defensive tackle depth. They have Chris Jones, obviously all pro, been great. But beside him, they've had some real issues, especially stopping the run. Derek Nottie, they traded back from the Jets early in the season. He has not been very productive for them. And they have great downhill tackling safeties, great downhill tackling cornerbacks, great downhill tackling linebackers, especially Nick Bolton in the middle. But what happens is because they're sort of making up for that gap on the interior, they have those guys flow so hard downhill that if you go play action, if you go under center, you get them. And that's what you saw. If you go back to the tape of the Chargers game in week 1, Justin Herbert over and over, under center, play action, linebackers flowing downhill, huge spaces in the intermediate, huge spaces on in-breaking routes. To me, that's the biggest matchup of this game, because if the Lions can do what they do well, if they can establish that, and if they can hit on those sorts of passes that really is the basis of their offense, hit some runs, and then get behind those linebackers and those free-flowing guys downhill and get those intermediate chunk yard gains, it's going to be real hard for the Chiefs. I mean, this is going to have to be a shootout for them to win. They potentially can win it. Patrick Mahomes and the offense is looking really good right now, but in terms of that strength versus weakness matchup, look at in breakers, look middle of the field, look play action. That's where the Chiefs have struggled mightily this season, and that's an area where the Lions have been really, really good.
Yeah, they have been really, really. You have a ton of Lions fans smiling ear to ear right now hearing that from you, because Jared Goff is one of the best in the league at play action. Lions offense is one of the best in the league, and I contend that Jared Goff is one of the best in intermediate in route cutting throwers in this league. The Detroit wants to attack the center of a defense with the run game, with the play action game, and then they want to hit Jamison Williams, one of the top 5 fastest players in this league, who's, had a couple, quiet weeks. They're going to look to get him going. Maybe this is a week they try to get right with that. Jesse, Lions were in Kansas City 2 years ago for the season opener. Kind of ruined that Super Bowl banner presentation by the Chiefs. I'm just curious, 2 years later, obviously these teams look a lot different, but who's a new guy that maybe Lions fans don't know, whether it's a young guy, a free agent, maybe not one of those big-name Kansas City guys that we've gotten used to in their run over the years, but who's a guy that could maybe make an impact Sunday night that Lions fans aren't real familiar with and maybe they should get familiar with?
Well, yeah, this is a joke. I know if this is so let me say that up front. But Chris Jones is a guy that didn't play in that Lions game. Only showed him in the press box, remember, with his agent.
Touche.
Holding out. So that'll be a guy to get to know. He'll be motivated this week. It was crazy because the last play of the game when Trevor Lawrence had that 1-yard touchdown run and dove in, the highlights basically showed that Chris Jones was kind of just standing in his spot and didn't hustle to the play. So he's faced some kind of widespread criticism this week, from people out there to not hustle. Now, listen, Chris Jones is out there for almost every snap. It's crazy how much he plays. And so I definitely would extend him some grace there, but I think they're going to get a motivated player there. But a couple names to keep in mind. I did mention Omar Norman-Lott, who should be coming back from shoulder injury in the middle. He just brings so much pass rush juice next to Chris Jones. And really, the 2 games the Chiefs lost in week 1 and last week, they both came down to the same thing, which was they needed third and long stops at the end of the game and couldn't get them because a guy like Chris Jones had just played almost every snap. And so getting him back, he was one of the top guys in terms of pressure rates in college last year at Tennessee. He's real springy on the inside, and so he potentially could make a play there. And then another guy emerging offensively that is definitely a guy to watch is 7th-round pick Brashard Smith. I don't mean this in the way that a lot of Chiefs fans think I mean it, but he is sort of like a McCole Hardman to them. He is sort of like a Kadarius Toney to them in that he was a receiver most of his college career, transitioned to running back last year, but the Chiefs are playing him like a gadget player. They're playing him like, hey, you take an end around, you take a quick screen on the outside, and he has a great burst, great speed, and he's getting more involved with the offense week by week. And so their running backs, the Chiefs running backs, don't have too much explosive dynamic ability, but Brashard Smith is a guy who can break one. But look for him sort of in the creative plays, the pop passes, the quick screens to the outside. And like I said, each week by week, he's giving them more and more plays, adding more and more to the playbook. The more he can take on mentally, the more he's going to help the Chiefs here throughout the course of the rest of the season.
All right, last one for you, Jesse. I'm curious, what have Chiefs players and coaches said about this matchup, said about this Detroit Lions team coming in? Obviously 4-1. They've won 4 straight, looking for 5 straight, playing pretty well in all 3 phases. I'm just curious, what have they kind of said about what kind of game they expect Sunday night in Kansas City?
Well, I think Dan Campbell has brought this mentality that, even if you're not following the Lions closely, you think of them in a certain way. You think of them as aggressive, physical, and I can't tell you. I mean, it was at least repeated 3 or 4 times by Patrick Mahomes in his press conference where he said we have to match their mindset, their mentality, their aggressiveness, all those sorts of things. So the Chiefs are expecting a battle in this one. The other thing that I'll be interested in is last week against the Jaguars, Andy Reid. Throughout the course of the season, he's been really aggressive on 4th downs, and the Chiefs were not aggressive against the Jaguars. A couple 4th and 2s they punted early, but we know what the Lions do, man. And it's funny because when Andy Reid played at home against the Ravens and Harbaugh, like the Chiefs went for a lot of 4th downs because I think in Andy's mind, he sort of matches what he thinks he has to do for the other team. And so this is probably bad news for Lions fans, obviously, but I think 2-3 at home and with what the Lions do, I think you're going to get an Andy Reid that's as aggressive as he's going to be in any game, any matchup. And like I said, the Chiefs, their backs are against the wall right now. It doesn't seem like it if you go under the hood and look at their advanced stats. It doesn't seem like it if you look at their injury report or how Patrick Mahomes is playing, but they desperately need a win. That they need to get to 3-3 and get Rashee Rice back next week and try to kind of change the course of this season. But I would expect the Chiefs to come out with a lot of emotion, a lot of physicality, and a lot of aggressiveness because they are going to try to match what they believe the Lions are going to bring to Arrowhead.
And you know that place is going to be rocking Sunday night. On Sunday Night Football, it'll be a great atmosphere. 2 really good football teams. I don't care what the record says. When you have Patrick Mahomes and that guy steps on the field, you've got a shot every single week. Their backs are a little bit against the wall. Detroit's rolling. So such an interesting dynamic Sunday night in Kansas City. You will be there covering everything from Kansas City's perspective. I got Detroit covered. It should be a great matchup. Jesse, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you Sunday night.
Sounds good, Tim. Appreciate it.